Good evening, everyone. See, you don't know me. That was terrible. Now, I believe very much in call and response, and so when the call is strong, the response has to be at least as strong, if not stronger. So I'm going to do that again. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. You don't know what that does. Thank you. My name is Ron Marlowe, and I am the Assistant Secretary for Access and Opportunity in the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, and I also have the pleasure of serving as the chair of what's known as the Access and Opportunity Committee, which is the monitoring committee around our compliance goals with respect to MBE, WBE participation, and with respect to minority and women participation as labor on this work. Tonight's meeting is brought to you really by the Division of Capital Asset and Management in conjunction with our friends and partners from the University of Massachusetts Building Authority. And tonight's meeting is really to focus on contract buyout activity that is on the horizon so that each and every one of you who are contractors will have a clear sense as to the timing that the buyout activity will take place so that you can gear up to participate in meaningful ways, assuming it's in the space that you're in. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my good friend Arthur Bernard, who is the Vice Chancellor for Government Relations and Community Affairs here at UMass Boston. Arthur was here but had to go to another meeting that's taking place on campus, but it's through the generosity and kindness of UMass Boston that we're able to do these meetings here, and so I do want to say thank you to Arthur. Is he still there? Arthur, raise your hand so everybody know who you are. Everybody, please thank Arthur Bernard. Thank you very much again, Arthur. Let me also say welcome and introduce you to Commissioner of the Division of Capital Asset Management, Ms. Carol Cornelison, who is also here. And Carol, would you just... my good friend, who is the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Supplier Diversity Office, who hopefully all of you who are minority-owned and women-owned firms are actually certified through that office, Mr. Reggie Nunley. And last but not least, our partner in tonight's event, who worked tirelessly to make sure that this event took place, the president of the Mass Minority Contractors Association, Mr. Jesse Jeter. Jesse? So my role is nearly done. Let me say that, again, tonight is about understanding when and where the opportunities will lie as the projects at UMass Boston move forward. This won't be the only time that we will do such a meeting or make information publicly available. Please take a moment once the event is over to get to know the CMs, construction managers, and their representatives who are here. Get to know Mike Lambert, who is one of the project managers and actually the principal project manager for DCAM, who is also here. These are people who will at least help you understand where the opportunities and where the access exists, and if you don't make a chance to make a connection with them, shame on you. And with that said, let me turn it over to my colleague in state government, Mr. Michael Lambert, project manager for the Division of Capital Asset Management. And there are no workman's comp cases here. Thanks, buddy.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I don't get the same responses from none, but that's... tonight we're just going to go over buying opportunities for M and WBE contractors on 3 of the jobs. I'm in charge of the science building that's starting now. We have Walsh Brothers and Steve Villani will come up shortly and talk about packages that we're going to be bidding. These packages can be bid by M and WBEs entirely, but each of those packages will have a percentage reserved for minority and women businesses. We have goals of 7.4 and 4% on a job that we plan on hitting as a minimum. So Steve will come up and he'll clarify some of that. I think also with us is Stu Lesser from Jocelyn Lesser. They are the OPM That's the project manager for UMBA, the UMass Building Authority. They're in charge of the EMK building. The CM for that is Lee Kennedy, and they have representatives here tonight that you can meet and talk to. And they are also the OPM on the new academic building. And Gilbane is the CM on that one. They could not make it here tonight. So just as far as scheduling goes, our contract, the integrated science buildings, we'll be doing the buyouts in about a month. So it's going to be coming up quickly. I think on, speaking for UMBA, and Stuart, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think on the EMK, you're looking at maybe 4 to 8 weeks before you start doing the buys? A little longer? Okay. So maybe 8 to 12 weeks, but just to give a heads up. And I think on the academic building with Gilbane, you're probably looking at 6 to 8 months. That's the furthest one out on this first series of 3 projects that we're working on. So again, Stuart's here. He can answer questions and meet people. Members from Lee Kennedy are here, and Steve is here. We also have in a folder at the front table a questionnaire for contractors if you want to fill that out. So you give us a heads up, and we'll share that with the other CMs. And that way that'll give them a little bit of a heads up on the contractors who are out there who are interested in working with us, with UMBA, and with the other CMs. So I think, Linda, are they up at the back table? Okay, so they're up at that front desk. I think there's enough copies, so if you can take that and just fill it out for us, and we'll share that with Lee Kennedy and with Gilbane. So hopefully you'll get phone calls on that. The other thing the commissioner wanted me to mention was that we do have a website up, and it went live last night on this campus and the projects that we're doing here. With that, we publish the minority workforce on a weekly basis. We're using the City of Boston plan, which is 50% resident, 25% minority, and 10% female. And then there's a veterans preference in there, but there's not a minimum amount. So we publish our numbers every week. We get them on Wednesday. So we try to get them on the website by Thursday. And right now we're hitting the numbers pretty good. Not as evenly across the boards as we'd like to see, but for the stage that we're in and the number of people we have, I think we're doing a pretty good job. And we'll continue to do that. So Steve, why don't you come up and go over the packages? And again, I think the packages that Steve is talking about are the same packages that you'll be looking at with the other 2 CMs. There are filed sub-bids, trade bids. They're bigger packages. We do get a lot of MBE and WBE participation in those, but they're much bigger packages, and we are not allowed to put any MBE or WBE participation in those. There was a case several months ago with the Attorney General's office that we lost, and so we're prohibited from doing that now. But we'll still hit our numbers with the non-trade bids, and that's what Steve will talk about. So, Steve.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everybody on this beautiful night. Nice night for a walk outside, actually. As Mike said, we're going to have drawings for bid in the next few weeks, and we'll be putting those out into the marketplace. DCAM will put out the filed trade bidders, and we'll put out the non-trade bidders. Just to let you know what some of those packages are, if you saw the project when you came in, we have the foundations are in, and we'll be ready for steel very shortly. Structural steel will be coming in December, and then you'll start to see the building rise above the ground. Now that is the last, one of the last packages that's already been purchased. The structural steel is purchased, and the curtain wall package has been purchased. Everything else is still out there to be bought. And the first one that comes to mind as the steel goes up is the concrete decks. That's a fairly large project. That'll be out for bid in this next package. We also have all the wooden plastics bid package will be out. The applied fireproofing, the spray-on material that goes on the structural steel. The entire packages of hollow metal doors, frames, and hardware, along with overhead coiling doors, and some horizontal sliding accordion doors. There'll be a package for louvers and vents that'll be out. Gypsum wall board, that's a fairly large package. It's one of the larger packages on the project. That'll be out for bid in that time frame. Resinous flooring and carpeting will be bid in that time frame. The specialty equipment, given that this is a laboratory building, there's a lot of laboratory equipment and specialty equipment in the building. That's a fairly large package. That'll be out for bid also. There's environmental rooms in the laboratories, if you're familiar with those. That's a fairly large package. That'll also be out for bid. And there still is more earthwork to be let, even though it looks like we've got most of it. You probably see all the mounds of dirt that just keep getting moved around the site, but we actually do have a plan for all that, and it will be gone shortly. And let's see, what else? Oh, the exterior improvements, the landscaping and the final site work will be out for bid. And those are pretty much the non-trade packages that we have yet to go. The other packages, like I said, will be bid through DCAM as filed trade bidders, and especially the large ones like the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Thank you.
I forgot to mention that we have 2 people here from our certification office, that Natasha Bazanis and Harry, I'll butcher your last name, so I'm not even going to try. And I've worked with them for 20 years. They have applications for certification. Subcontractors, trade bidders have to be certified. And even if the jobs we're doing here, these are pretty big jobs that we're doing, that Lee Kennedy is doing here, and that Gilbane is doing. We have jobs across the state. And we have smaller jobs that you could bid as a general, as a trade contractor. So you should talk to Natasha. She has the forms. Look at it. See if you qualify and you meet the requirements. And if you do, fill it out. We're going to have a lot of smaller jobs, I think, coming up in the next year. You know, renovation, just facilities maintenance stuff that may fit the size of the firms a little better than a $140 million science building, $150 million science building. It's a big job. I guess I'll open it up for questions. Commissioner, you want to say anything? Or? No? Okay. We'll open up to questions. It's going to be an early night. Jesse, you want to, well, let me not rush. Jesse, you want to get up and say a few words before we? Yes. Okay. There are, in Mass General laws, and I think there are 17 categories of file sub-bids in a regular 149 job. It's the same categories, but we call them trade contractors in a 149A, which is CM at risk. Those, I don't know them all. I should have been here long enough, but it's the mechanical, plumbing, electrical, painting, roofing, terrazzo, lading, plastering, masonry. There are 17 of those. Those are the ones that, if you're big enough and you're certified by DCAM, you can bid with us and with the other 2 CMs and with any awarding authority in the Commonwealth. Those are the ones that we cannot any longer put a requirement in for M and WB participation. We had done that for the past 4 or 5 years, and it worked out well. Unfortunately, there was it all goes on the most recent lawsuit that was filed, and so we lost that ability for now, and we're going to try to get that back, and we're going to work at that in the future. So what we can do now is put the percentages in on the non-trade bids, which are the ones that Steve mentioned: concrete work, site work, planting, landscaping, case work, carpentry work, and that's what we'll do. So some of those contracts, again, we'll look at. We review this every month, and we'll see where our numbers are. Some, we may just go out to bid to M or WBE firms, but they'll all have percentages. And it could be 15%, it could be 50%. It depends on where our numbers are to hit the numbers. So it's important that those of you who are here fill out those informational forms. That'll give us a base to use, so we just don't put it on the CM. They'll go into Reggie's directory, and that's how we do it. So if we know firms firsthand from that, not the application, but just from the information form, that'll help us out. going to be a short night with no questions. Yes, sir. Steve, are you requiring everyone to be bonded? Yeah. I'm sorry, Steve, could you get that mic?
All subcontractors are bonded.
I think you said all subcontractors will be required to be bonded. Is Lee Kennedy the same way? You're going to require bond? Yeah. Most of the CMs, and Stuart's nodding his head, will require all of their subcontractors, whether it's trade or non-trade, to be bonded. Now, if you have if you're participating with a bigger sub, and he's bonded, that may cover you. So that way you won't, if there's a requirement in the non-trade package for participation, and you join up with that subcontractor, he'll have the bond. I'm not sure if he'll require you to get a bond. There's just that layer of bonding that goes on. I don't think they usually do, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. To bond subcontractors?
No, really? I understand I don't know, and I know Anthony, and considerably is one of our CMs, and I'll call him up and get some information on that.
On some contract. Just say the question. Can you?
I said Consigli has an in-house bonding program for their subs to have a challenge with getting the bond. You do have to present the financials, but they do have a bonding program that's in-house.
Okay.
And I'm asking you as a question because I respect the fact that you said all subs got to be bonded.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you have that in-house in your company.
I'm not sure exactly the type of program you're talking about. We do have a sub-guard program,
Yeah,
which we put on some projects where we would
Yeah,
provide
it's a
the
sub-guide.
It was a sub-guard. Okay, this
Yeah.
project does not have sub-guard on it.
Okay, so this project doesn't have sub-guide.
Right.
Okay, so it's subject. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is that all the jobs on this campus do fall under a PLA, a project labor agreement. So you all have to be signatory to the appropriate unions. Now, you don't have to be signatory today. If you get a job, there's a one-time, there's a phrase that they have for that, but you can be signatory for this job only. But you do have to be signatory with the PLA. So. Pardon? Sorry. They're not there yet. No questions? Yes, sir. Miss Metals? That's a trade bid. That's a filed sub bid. Yep. It has to be by law. That's one of the subcategories. Yes. No, it has not.
It has
The
not.
trade bids will be, I think the trade bids are going out in about 2 to 3 weeks. And that'll be one that's going out in the trade bids that go out. They'll all go out. I think all of them are going out at the same time. I think we've only bought out right now concrete, some site work, underground early utility packages, and steel.
And curtain wall.
And curtain wall. Because curtain wall is a long lead item, and that's critical with the steel. But again, you have to be certified as a sub with DCAM to bid that. So if you're not, you should talk to our certification people. Okay, good, good. Any more questions? Okay, I guess thank you. Again, please fill out the informational packets that we have. If you have any questions, call us. We'll be happy to work with you.